Logan, give me that pink.
President Larry Ives.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up Show, Chicago. My name is Dr. Larry Ivory. I'm the President CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and also the Chairman of the Board of the National Black Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. It is another Saturday morning that we get a chance to engage in some healthy dialogue and information in terms of how do we strengthen black businesses and strengthen black communities all at the same time. Today we're going to have an exciting show that we're going to, really get into the weeds on a couple things that I think will be relevant in terms of what's going on. Let me also, pivot and give recognition to my partner, Doctor. Well, not yet, but soon, Dr. LaDonna Ray, who's going to be getting her honorary degree today. So congratulations to the one and only Dr. I'm preemptive until you get it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Dr. LaDonna Ray, in terms of her role as a media, no, she really drives so much in terms of our organization and in terms of getting everything set up so we have a smooth transition on the radio show. So, LaDonna, thanks a lot and congratulations again, LaDonna Ray.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Especially coming right after Dr. Larry Ivory. Don't even minimize that, sir. But guys, if you we want to thank you for joining us each and every Saturday on the Wake Up Show Chicago. You can share the show. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and also you can go to our website, and that's ilbcc.org. And we're just glad to be here to give you guys some insight on how business is working, not just in Chicago, not just in Illinois, but all across the nation and all across the world. If you see fit, which you probably will, join us by going to ilbcc.org. The Black Chamber of Commerce, or the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, has been working tirelessly for small, medium, and large corporations since 1997. And I've seen the results. We've topped over $1 billion just in that time frame, which is not, I mean, it's a lot when it comes to the black business community. But if you look at how much has been out there, like just recently, a $56 billion appropriation went out for the general budget for 2027. Some people were included in those budgets, and it's a great way to thrive and have a forward move into the next upcoming year. But the chamber really gets it on the ground. We get it out the mud, okay, as some people say. And that comes from sponsorship. That comes from membership. We have plenty of members on paper. But if you want to become a member, I really want to just prepare you and say that it's an annual contribution. And that annual contribution allows for us to do things like the radio show, to do things like the conference, the annual conference that we do, lobby day when we go out in droves, going back and forth to Springfield, flying to Washington, D.C., having certain subject matter experts on panels. This money goes towards a lot, and there's a lot of overhead. Okay, I don't want to sound like a telethon, like I always say, but you know what I also always say, Larry: no
No
money,
money, no honey.
no honey. That's right. But I love the fact that I can call you because I'm a member. I can call you and say, Larry, I'm having an accounts receivable issue. Can you help me out? Or Larry, there's a contract that I'm interested in looking into, and they didn't consider my business for this particular contract or this particular appropriation. Can you look into it? Can you help me? Can you get somebody on it right away? I love the fact that I can do that, but that is because I am a paid member. I love you, Larry, and I love the chamber, and I really do appreciate you.
Well, hey, LaDonna,
Oh,
same
also,
here.
we're brought by Wind Creek. I'm sorry, I forgot. We're sponsored by Wind Creek, okay, which I was just there yesterday. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Hey, I just want to say that, it's important that we build our infrastructure, and just like the state of Illinois, we all need infrastructure so goods and services can move freely throughout the state. If you have bad highways, bad rails, bad bad air travel in the air, it makes it difficult. So infrastructure is important. Infrastructure for business, for organizations is just as important. And so we have to have infrastructure in order to make sure that goods and services move through. Let me just also say that Donna hit on the fact that we have impacted $1 billion. But I want to put that in context that that's $1 billion in terms of we're over $1 billion that we track in terms of a year and a half. That's if you take a look at our numbers over our tenure, you're talking about maybe the numbers would be, and we didn't track all the numbers, but I would dare say if we were doing the estimate, we're probably talking 15 to 18 billion dollars that the chamber has impacted in terms of contracts and opportunities for black businesses across the state of Illinois. So I want to get back, Ladonna. One of the things I often give a lot of thought, and I was thinking about black business and thinking about black people, in this very toxic environment, in my opinion. And I remember a comment that I heard, and I can't quite remember who I heard it from, but I want to repeat it. It says that life is like an onion. You got to peel it one layer at a time, and sometimes you got to cry. And I want to point out a couple of things that, kind of make you feel bad or make you feel, and this is not about a pity party. This is just about what we're dealing with. And it doesn't mean that we don't have a sense of overcoming, because we do, and we have, and we will, and continue to do that. But just recently, I was listening to a show, and it pointed out that George Floyd, the Minnesota legislative, paused for a moment in silent prayer for the gentleman who killed George Floyd, who murdered George Floyd. And I was shocked by that. I was just shocked by the fact that a caucus, legislators in Minnesota decided to pause and pray for the gentleman who killed George Floyd. Didn't pause and pray for George Floyd, who was murdered, but pause and pray for the police officer who committed that horrific crime. So, that's something that you have to struggle with. The other thing I wanted to point out is that, and this is something we can be, it's a move in the right direction. I was really kind of surprised that in Florida, they've been gerrymandering and reducing black representation like they're doing all across the country, where they can do it, where you have red states, where they're gerrymandering and getting rid of, in some cases, black representation, even where there's significant black population, to make sure that whites stay in control. And just recently, Florida did the same thing. And there was going to be one seat in Florida, basically, that was going to be where you were going to have black representation. And what ended up happening, there were 4 African Americans running for the seat, and there was one white female who decided she wanted to run for the seat. And what ended up happening is that, and I was proud of this, I don't know how it's going to go and whether this is going to work or not, but the 4 black legislators came together, the 4 black candidates came together and decided that they would discuss among themselves and make sure that they didn't divide the vote, that they were going to get in a room, discuss it, and maybe try to come out with one person that they would support so that they could have representation of a black person in the state of Florida. I commend that. I wish that we would do more of that, and because I think it becomes important. And it's not that every black person that gets into office, LaDonna, will represent us at the highest level. It doesn't mean that, because I can point to many cases where we have black people in positions of power, and it doesn't really mean a lot to us as a rule of thumb. But it does make good sense for us to be able to identify the right people and get and make sure strategically that we get someone that represents the community, that becomes a voice in reference to legislative agenda and things that impact black people and black businesses. And that's important. So my hats off to the team. I hope they get it right. I'm not sure they're going to get it right, but the fact that they're doing it is positive, LaDonna. So hands out to them. So what do you think about that, LaDonna?
I had to take my mute button off. You mentioned that the chamber's impact was over $1 billion, basically tracked in opportunities just in a year and a half. Wow. I'm glad you quantified that.
Yeah.
And so that's a potential 15 to 18 billion dollars over the life of the organization. Now, just so people know, that didn't happen because we just existed. It happened because people came together in the chamber and to reach a common goal. If we look at, what you're saying about the environment, there are moments that are so frustrating and they get discouraging. And because of this, what stood out to me when it came to Florida, that example, instead of allowing them to be divided, those candidates recognized that there was something at stake and it was bigger than an ego. So sometimes we spend time fighting each other instead of, and we need to forget about fighting each other and understand that the bigger fight is making sure communities have representation.
Yeah,
Um,
I,
the
absolutely.
other, and then my final point, because I'm gonna drop off at 9:30, Larry, so I can get to my ceremony. But there's so many lessons to learn today. We don't have to agree on everything. Um, but we do need to be intentional about things that matter the most. And whether it's, it could be business, politics, education, and just economic development. There are times when collaboration produces a better outcome than competition. And we got to stop this competition because you're really, how you say you're competing with yourself? That's what you're doing when you compete with each other. And that's really what the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce has been about for the last 20 years, bringing people together and creating opportunities and making sure that black businesses have a seat at the table. And my hat goes off to you. So
Yeah.
thank you, Larry.
Yeah, and I mention that because too often I've seen in Illinois, in Chicago, where we have 12, 13 black candidates, and sometimes we neutralize each other. And it doesn't mean that, like I said, that every black candidate will get it right and they will do everything we think they ought to do. But when someone who does not look like you, who hasn't had your experiences, they can't always understand and represent you at the highest level if they've never experienced some of the inherent challenges that you've had. So it's important from my perspective and from a business perspective to make sure that there is representation, no different than on a jury when you're getting ready to, in court and you want to be tried by a jury of your peers. Many years ago, it was an all white jury, and we were never going to get any equity or any fairness or any justice because it was literally white. And that's why representation is important from my perspective in terms of seats in the legislative agenda on Capitol Hill, on local, whether it be aldermen, whether it be council people, no matter who it is, we need to make sure that we put people of color in the position and hold them accountable, make sure you get qualified individuals, and make sure they carry the water. They just passed a $56 billion budget. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I hope you read the budget, okay? And the question is that we ought to be asking legislators is that what was in the budget for us? I mean, that's the only question that matters. If you had a $56 billion budget, what was in the budget for us? And black business ought to be asking the question, what was in the budget for black business? I mean, it's a legitimate question that is not an attack upon anyone. It's just what was in the budget that was going to help us overcome the disparities that exist within the state of Illinois when it comes to black business. Because we've been talking about this ever since we've been on the radio show, ever since we've been an organization, about the disparity of black business, documented facts from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, where they clearly state that over 80% of black businesses do less than $50,000 a year. Those are real numbers. Those are their numbers. It's not my numbers. I didn't come up with the numbers. But those numbers are true throughout the United States of America, which means that we're only generating $50,000 and under for 80% of our businesses, which means that we're solopreneurs. And if you take a look at the number of solopreneurs in the state of Illinois, over 132,000 black businesses, you're going to find out that over 90% of those businesses are solopreneurs. I only ask people to pause and give some thought to the fact that what happens if those 90% grow their revenues to 200, half a million, and also employ more people. What does that do to our unemployment number? Because our unemployment numbers, as we know, are higher than everybody else. When you take a look at Caucasians right now, unemployment numbers is about 4 point something percent. And the African American community is looking probably close to about 7 point something percent, the last numbers that came out. So we're chronically unemployed in comparison to everybody else. But if we grow black businesses and black businesses are able to grow and get to the next level, and because black businesses will hire black people as a rule of thumb, we're doing good for society. We're doing good for ourselves, and we're doing good for good for society. I think that's important.
All right. It's very important and it's very disturbing what you just said. 7% of black Americans are unemployed. That's across the country, correct?
Correct. Those are
Yes,
the
so
numbers
it
across
is.
the country.
There's about 45 million of us in the country, and we're outnumbered by other groups. Yet we have a higher percentage, which means our per capita is much higher, which means we've got to take care of our own problems, Larry. You know, I think about that $56 billion appropriation and what's in it for us. And now I'm starting to think, I'm thinking about whether we're in the budget or not, we can create our own budget since we do generate $2 trillion a year into the economy. And as that $2 trillion goes into the economy and not into our own businesses or in our own communities, we may have to rethink who we want to send to college. I literally have been on strike from getting my nails done because I think about how I'm sending their kids to college every 6 weeks or every 4 weeks. I've rolled back where I purchase certain things from because I don't want to send their kids to college. I had a conversation with somebody. He came in with some red bottoms. I was like, look, I'm on strike. I said, some people want red bottoms. I get devices so that I can invest in my business or technology. And he said, I got my red bottoms on. I said, see, you just sent somebody to college. Okay. So we really have to think about that when we spend our money. Our tax dollars go into the states and the countries, and the country and the cities that we live in. Let's stick with the cities and the states. Those tax dollars go where we go, but it doesn't come back. There's no boomerang effect. And
Sure.
I want to land my plane by saying thank you for all the hard work that you've done, and thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. And I tell you what, we've got to get it together today, or there will be no tomorrow. I
Amen,
guarantee you
sister.
on that one. So I
Absolutely.
gotta head out,
You got to
Larry.
exit.
I
You got
do.
to
I have
exit.
to. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I really appreciate, all everyone who supported me up to now and beyond. I'm excited about this journey. What does this doctor mean in front of my name? It means that I have to be accountable and I've got work to do. So let the work begin as if, well, it already began, but I got some things to do. You got two callers on the line.
Okay. Well,
Let's go
hey,
ahead. Yeah, just
Go,
go
go,
ahead
go,
and
go,
pray.
lock them in. I'll take it from here, Ladonna. Hey, have a great day and congratulations again.
Thank you. Chappelle, bring those callers through. Caller, you're on the Wake Up Show Chicago.
Yeah, this is Bianchi. How you doing? Who is this, LaDonna?
LaDonna Ray and Dr. Larry Ivory.
Yeah, Larry. What I was gonna say is that I personally, I don't go along with the voter districts that they created in Louisiana, and you got to give consideration. Me, a black business person, I voted for Donald Trump. I'm gonna tell you the reason why.
Okay.
For business wise, one, my corporate income tax is lower, 15%. My personal income tax, 0.025. And I'm able to expense a large piece of equipment. If I go out and buy a crane for $3.5 million, I can expense that off as a deduction in 1 year. When Democrats is in office, I had to take it out 20 years. So you have to make some kind of compromise. For you got blacks that support this present administration business wise, and I can name quite few more on that particular issue. So what am I supposed to do? I got to do the things that's necessary. If I can expense a piece of equipment off in 1 year, I can take that money and put it back into more equipment and also manning more jobs. Do you see what I'm saying, Larry?
Oh yeah, I understand. Here's the point that I want to make. As a chamber, we are bipartisan. We care about policy. At the end of the day, we want to know about policy, how it impacts black people and black business. That's what we're interested in. And sometimes we may disagree with Republicans and agree with Democrats. Sometimes we may agree with Democrats and disagree with Republicans. I think a sophisticated voter understands what he or she is voting for and why they're voting for it. Because politics is about dividing the spoils of war. That's all politics really is determining what's in my best interest. And if that's in your best interest, that's in your best interest. Now, I would submit to people that one interest can be a plus. It's like strategic planning. You look at the forces for and against you. Well, if you're going to get rid of a lot of other things that impact my business, and you're not going to be sensitive to contract opportunities, then that may, in spite of some of the things that are good, that may balance the scale and say, well, this is why I may not support that administration. But it really is a decision that every American citizen has to grapple with themselves and be an informed voter. I respect everybody's right to vote for who they decide is in their best interest. We have to respect that. I think where we're at now in this society. Go ahead.
I tell you another reason, Larry, is that this administration, and you know that the education, academic performance of black children in the United States, and especially your big cities, where you have a population in a high school like East St. Louis, 99% are black. You got less than 1%. Now, how do you figure less than 1% is doing math efficiently, 6% reading, about 15% in the other acronym?
Well, let me pause you for a moment and ask you this question. Let me pause you for a moment. When you think about your children, because again, I don't know. Do you have any kids?
Well, yes, I have kids.
Okay. Now, if you think about our kids, what we're trying to do, I believe most parents want to make things better that for them than it was for we want to make it better for our kids than it was for us. When you take a look at some
Absolutely
of the
right.
policies in terms of woke and taking out black history, golden power, there's other factors that one has to consider other than one's pocketbook. Sometimes it's not to say that you ought to consider your pocketbook, because no money, no mission. Okay. So, but again, we can continue the dialogue. But let me take the next call. Hey, thank you for calling in. We appreciate it. Let's take the next caller.
Let's talk about this some more, Larry, because
Hey, I
I
look
think
forward
you're
to
not
it.
getting the entire picture.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
you're getting
look
the
forward
entire
to a
picture.
conversation with you.
Yeah.
The next caller. Do we have another caller? Well, hey, let's keep moving.
Hello?
LaDonna is.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
This is Janice. I understand what you're saying about black businesses because I used to get Angelica cakes out here in the south suburbs, and they had a store. They had a place where not young people, everybody's younger than I am, but people were working. I used to get Reggio's pizza at the Country Club Hills Walmart, and also somebody's seasoning that my sister got. I tried on my own to fight for this, and I could not get it. I know that we are against Trump, this and that, that and this, but I'm for jobs for black people. You think about it. If we could put 10 more blacks at Reggio's Pizza, 10 more blacks, and if we open this place in Hazelcrest or Country Club Hills, I can't tell them apart. And if we did that type of thing, and I enjoy that show, we're getting better shows on WVON about business, which is excellent. I think we've got to do that.
Oh, we
And I
do.
want to say something to LaDonna. LaDonna, I get a magazine called Bottom Line Personal. They had a thing in there about if your child from 16 to 21 put aside $3,000 from their little lawn business or working, by the time they turn 65 and don't touch it after 21, they'll have 2 point something million. And that's
Absolutely.
tax free in a Roth IRA. We've got to learn how to handle money. The first time I heard about stuff like that was on, he's dead now, Harold Davis' show. He was talking about what the Jews did. You're doing a good job here. But we got to let those pennies work. And I think about my grandfather and my grandmother and even my mother. They used other blacks who did certain things. And it
Yeah.
wasn't because and you would never hear them. My grandfather would have never had an afro in a million years. But they just knew each man should be able to take care of his family. And now
Absolutely.
that I'm older, I can see everything they did. You would never see them screaming what they were doing. We grew a big garden, and they gave food away. And I didn't know it was religiously, it was called gleaning. They lived their life. And when I look at these black people living hound and hog, and I am so mad about those black politicians telling those young people not to go to these schools where they have scholarships at, just because of voting. And when these same blacks went against us for illegal immigration, it made me livid.
Hey, Janice. Hey, let me thank you for your comments. Janice, let me thank you for your comments, and let me just kind of respond to a couple of things. 'Cause I think you've made several good points, and I think we agree upon the fact that growing black businesses is good for black people and good for the state of Illinois, and that we have a significant disparity. And when you take a look at the numbers, if we were to add 5 employees to every solopreneur, the impact that we have, the revenues, because SBA shows us if you have 5 employees, you generate an average of about 300 to $400,000 based upon the number of employees that you have. So it's in our collective best interest. But I don't think there's enough emphasis put on black businesses at the caucus level and at the state level. And I remember years ago when we were talking about how do we get this economy on track. Well, the only way you can get economy, you can't tax your way out of a problem. You have to grow your way in and perhaps do some taxes with it. But you got to grow black businesses. And I think there's nothing as important for us to take a real look at how do we improve black business success across the state of Illinois. And that was one of the points that you were making. I concur with you. And I think there was another point that you had mentioned that it escapes me right now. But again, thanks a lot, Janice, for calling in. Guys, let's continue to have this conversation on on the politics of business and the business of politics. And it's important, from my perspective, is that when we take a look at the $56 billion budget, we have to be engaged in the budget process. We got to make sure that black business have a seat at the table, and we got to make sure the organizations that are out there get the money and resources by which to carry out the mission to help black business owners. And one of the things that we see, based upon just pure data, not my data, but the state's data, is that black businesses, when it comes to contracting with the Department of Transportation, when it comes to the state, black people are at the bottom of the totem pole. The only people who are doing worse than African Americans is normally Native Americans. And yet we got all this political might and all this black legislative power, and we're still struggling. We have to begin to prioritize black business. And we haven't done a great job of that. And perhaps it's not just on them, it's on all of us not making black business a priority, because in my opinion, the only way from poverty to prosperity comes through entrepreneurship. So if we're growing black businesses, we're also improving our ability to support nonprofit organizations, because when you got money and you got resources, you can invest in people, invest in education, invest in charities. But if you're struggling and you don't have money and you're living from paycheck to paycheck, you're simply in a survival mode. You're not in a giving mode, because you're stuck trying to get some money, not stuck trying to invest some money. And my background, which I was fortunate enough that I worked for two of the biggest investment banking firms in the United States at one time. Merrill Lynch, Mother Merrill, they called it, and then also Citigroup, who owned Solomon Smith Barney. Those were two of the juggernauts in the investment banking field. And you're right, if you invest money, money can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it never gets tired. If you find the right stocks, the right investment. But like anything, there's caveats to that. If you get the wrong investment and you don't have diversification, you can find yourself in a position where if that market goes down, or that sector takes a hit, or that company takes a hit, that you can put all your eggs in one basket and you can be devastated. So you really need to understand investment strategy, how to protect yourself in up markets, down markets. And those are things that we need to be teaching our kids as a part. Instead of taking kids to all these other things, we need to take kids to school when it comes to economic literacy and how to invest in the market and how to become wealthy, because with money comes influence and power. I don't know if we have any of the callers right now, because we're doing this remotely. If we have any of the callers, you can patch them in. If not, we're going to continue to have this conversation that we're talking about in terms of black business and economic participation. And let me start with this, is that what businesses want, they want to grow their business. And most of the times, if you're a business of any size and scope, you are looking for an opportunity to present your goods, services, products to someone that would buy it and compete for it. And that's what you're looking for as a rule of thumb. And so one of the things that the Chamber focuses a lot of attention on is on policy and making sure that African American get contracts. That's why when we say we impacted in a year and a half over $1 billion+ to African American businesses, we track that in terms of what we've impacted, whether that be with casinos and contracts, with IDOT, Tollway, with all these companies where we were involved and engaged in pushing that agenda with corporations. So we're able to track some of that. But again, because we can track it, we look at how do we get that money to the hands of more black businesses collectively. So it's important for us to do that. And I think we at 9:44. LaDonna Ray, I see you're still driving. I don't know if you can hear me or not as you're driving, but if you can't, that's fine. But let me just go back to see if we have any, just going back to that point, is that Black business growth, we are looking for, our businesses are looking for opportunities. Now, here's what I want us to understand. I want you to really understand this. You contribute to the economy. And how do you contribute to the economy? If you have a job, you're paying taxes, whether it be state, local taxes, or federal taxes. You are contributing, and they're taking money out of your paycheck that otherwise you would have kept and put it into the system to fund infrastructure. And I always emphasize the fact, and that most people may not understand, that highway infrastructure is funded by the Transportation Trust Fund. And that is made up of when you put gas in your car, you are paying for highway infrastructure, which means that if you drive a car, whether you're black or white, green or blue, you go to the gas pump, they don't give you no free gas. So you're paying for it. When you pay for it, you are contributing to the local economy for infrastructure. Now the question becomes, how are we doing based upon our contribution? And if we don't stay engaged with the Federal Highway Administration, and if we don't stay engaged with the IDOT and the leadership of IDOT, in spite of all the challenges that they're dealing with in terms of the current administration, and if we don't push the envelope to make sure that when we take a look at the numbers, when they say, hey, we are doing this amount of money, always ask people to break down the amount, because when they say minority spend is made up of a lot of different people: white women, Hispanics, Asians, everybody is included in that. Always ask the question, how well are black people doing? And I never go into a meeting without asking them to break it down, because what you'll find out in most cases is that we are not doing very well, which means our businesses are not growing. That's why we continue to be solopreneurs. That's why our communities are not thriving as much as it should be. No money, no mission. So we have to really
No money, no
pay
honey.
attention. No money, no. Hey, Ladonna's back on the air as she is rolling in the car. We have to pay attention to that. So we are participating in that economy, and we have to make sure that people like the chamber is engaged in challenging the status quo, whether you be an engineer, whether you be a landscaper, whether you put it on asphalt, whatever the case may be. We want to know how well we're doing. If we're not doing well, then it's our job to bring attention to it and figure out why not and what do we need to do to change it. That's what we do as an organization on a continuous basis.
We have one caller.
Okay, let's take that caller then.
Let's bring the caller through. Good morning. You're on the Wake Up Show Chicago. Good morning. You're on the Wake Up Show Chicago. You're live.
Well, they're not answering. Let's keep going. So we mentioned IDOT. If we get them back on the air, LaDonna, let us know. But we mentioned IDOT as an example. But in every state agency, there are people, and I'll give you another example. And these are just, I need our people to understand how money flows and how we need to make sure that we are participating where our money help create the opportunity. If you take a look at the state revenue department, it employs people and it collects debt, you know. And if you don't pay your state taxes, they will send someone, hire someone to come and reach out to you to make sure they collect the state taxes that you deserve to pay, that everyone has to pay. Now, the problem is that, and no one's concerned about it, legislators aren't concerned about it, and it's an insult to black people, is that when you take a look at collection of debt, which is very lucrative, there's no black person ever in the history of the state of Illinois who have collected debt. But are there companies that can collect debt, who have systems and processes in place that can do that? Yes, there are. And we ought to fight for that. Mentex is one company that can do that. They do it for the city, for the county, and other different people. But we have to make sure they understand. Now, we're not saying give him the opportunity. If he doesn't have the systems and things in place, that's on them. So Go ahead, LaDonna.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
Good morning, Larry and LaDonna. This is Terry Simmons with Strategic Exceptions. How are you all this morning?
Hey, fantastic, Terry.
So good to be on with you all this morning, Larry. You know, this is a really good conversation that you're having this morning, and I'm going to tell you the Illinois State Black Chamber is a resource, a partner, a collaborator, an engine of business growth and development. And I'm going to say, Larry, you guys are doing your part. You're doing a really good job. It is us, most of us as business owners, we're not doing our part. We're not doing our part by showing up when you and your partners bring all of these educational resources. I heard the lady before, I think Janice said that we need more education. Well, we have a lot of education out there. We need people showing up, taking advantage of it. We even have free 99 stuff, and our people don't show up and take advantage, but we will complain. So we got to take advantage of what's available to us. We also have to use social media just for more than TikTok and trying to get a lot of likes. We need to use it to share out all of these great resources and things that's available. And when we're having conversations with people, we need to be sharing. Hey, did you know that the Illinois State Black Chamber have their annual conference coming up? And it's a huge event where they have matchmaking. They bring all of these resources like Strategic Exceptions and others to you. So, Larry, we have to do our part. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. But I challenge all of us, even if you don't have a business, you have access to this information. You have access to these resources. Share it and utilize it. Thank you so much. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful morning.
Thank you, Terry. Terry, thank you for the work that you do in terms of promoting healthy business. And my hat's off to you, and I'm glad that you are a strategic partner with a host of other people. And the Chamber respects everybody in the business because we understand that there is not one organization that can do it all. There's more. Go ahead, LaDonna. Next caller. Caller, you're on.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me, Larry?
Sure can.
Hey, Larry, this is Lorenzo. You're a
Hey,
human
Lorenzo.
consultant. Hey, I wanted to jump in and everything. I think I had a busy day and everything, but I think what you really got my attention when you mentioned investing in the stock market. I think, and with the other callers who mentioned education, I really want to say when you're dealing with institution like the Chamber, it gives us an opportunity as a culture to be open and transparent about what we don't know and being able to keep the education that you need. Because, when you talk about the stock market and you talk about residual or dividend payments and things like that and having your money work for you, in many cases, we don't understand the language of the stock market. I'm still learning. I'm investing in the stock market, and I have small dividend payments that come to me, and that's just an example of how your money can work for you and pay you, when you're not working. And I think, being with the Chamber gives you an opportunity to be exposed to educators, people that can educate you without being ashamed on the things that you don't know, such as the stock market and having multiple streams of income.
Oh, absolutely, Lorenzo. Absolutely. And we got to spend more time, like the Jewish people, educating the kids about money. Because money is what drives this country. And I tell people, black people have a significant trade deficit when it comes to where we're at and how the money stays in our community, stays in our communities. Money goes out, but it doesn't come in. It goes out, it doesn't come back in. So one of the things I just want to point out is that the black legislators, Hispanic legislators, white legislators, when there's an opportunity to break the barriers, every time I'm on the board, I push for making sure that there's a first black person who's never had a contract whether you're the first black architect for the school district. I'm always pushing that envelope. There is not a concentrated effort in the Department of Revenue. There has never been a black person who has been at debt collection, and no one says anything. Now, the person who competed for the contract, they disqualified him on one basic rule. He didn't have enough experience, and didn't state that in the RFP. And then they said that he didn't have, quite frankly, at the University of Illinois, he had three references, and he had three references, but two of them came from the University of Illinois, and they disqualified. We ought to be outraged when we come to the table. But now, here's what they don't do. When it comes to sports and be able to carry a basketball or run fast in the Olympics and represent the U.S., everybody wants to put the best person on the court. And they want to be the first. We want to break the records. But when it comes to business, people don't want to break any records. They don't want to take a look at where we're not participating and challenge status quo. That's what the chamber has to do to everybody. Anytime if there's a CTA contract and they don't have a black prime contract in engineering, and our job is to push that envelope and to make it happen. So it's important for us, and I just want our people to really get it and understand. Dr. Sterling competed, and I just want to put this out in the air real quick. He's been competing, and he spent millions of dollars of his own money to come with a solution that was good for black people when it comes to the disparity in health. And the disparity was significant enough that no one can debate the facts that black people, when it comes to healthcare outcome, we get treated the worst in everybody. He had a solution to the problem that he's been pushing for years and years and years, and they have allocated money but never gotten the money to him. And there's no one angry about that because it's an attack on black people, which means that we're not getting the medical help we want, and they ain't got the guts, in my opinion, to stand up and do something about it. It's time out for us continuing to give, and fight, and the same thing happen. And I'm at a point where I've been very sensitive to being, whether it be the caucus and people try to promote all the good things. But guys, we need your help. We need you to stand up, and regardless of who's in the governor's seat, who's not in the governor's seat, we need you to be a better advocate for black business. And we're not doing the job that we need to do. I say that to my state rep, Jahan Gordon. I love her. But black business aren't at the table, Jahan. They're not at the table, Maddie, Hunter. They're not at the table, Buckner, until we understand black business, because when black business grow, they give back to black politicians. We strengthen our political pack. It is good business to support black business. We're not doing a very good job of it, guys. We owe it to ourselves and to our families to make black business a priority. And yeah, some people may get mad at Larry because, he's made a comment. It's not an attack, guy. It's a plea to everybody to understand we got to do a better job. We must do a better job. At the end of the day, it's in our hands and our power. If black legislators come together, I watched them when they came together. When black legislators come together and they want to get something done, there's nothing that can stop them. There's absolutely nothing that can stop them. If something doesn't happen, it's because they decided it wasn't worthy enough to fight for it. Those are just the facts that I know. I know a lot of black politicians. We have a political pact. I'm the chairman of the board. And in 1 year, we gave over $250,000 to black politicians. And guys, we need to do a better job. At the end of the day, you need to put the chamber in the budget, because the chamber is fighting for black business, advocating policy and strategies, and pushing to make sure that black people have a seat at the table economically from a business perspective. If you don't understand that in capitalism, then I'm sorry, we're just not getting it, and we're not getting it in the right way. We got to support black media, black people, because we continue to contribute. We gave so much to this country, and so much has been taken away and continue to be taken away. And I'm saying, well, hey, guess what? If you want to take away everything, then take away, when you go out and try to represent us in the Olympics, maybe we ought not to be in the Olympics, making America one of the greatest medal winners, because you can't win it without us. So, ladies and gentlemen, hey, I appreciate you guys letting me vent. And again, congratulations to LaDonna Ray for the work, for her getting her honorary doctor's degree. Dr. LaDonna Ray, I'm going to have to get used to that, LaDonna. But hey, welcome to the Wake Up Show. I know we're getting ready to sign off. But to everybody, we care about black people and black business. We're not doing a good job. We got to do a better job. And if you hear this, as you're a legislator, you need to do a better job. Whether you're Sean Ford going to Congress, represent black business and make sure they have a voice. Thank you. Welcome to the Wake Up Show. I'm signing off. LaDonna, you want to close it out?
To the pulse of progress as we amplify voices.
Bye.
Illuminate the path towards a more inclusive tomorrow. Follow us across the socials at The Wake Up Show Chicago. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share.